Yeah.
All right, so it's 11 o'clock, so just get started.
You already started?
Just about to.
Okay. Do you have the Google Hangout sheet?
No, there wasn't one in the room.
Okay, I created it. I actually took a picture of it. Email it to you.
That would be great.
What's your email address?
Josh, regard.
Okay, yeah, I'll send it to you.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
All right, so welcome. This is the session to patch contrib module or write a custom module, and guidelines on how to select the right path. I know I'm up against some stiff competition for this slot, so thanks for coming. I first want to talk about, why is it doing it? I want to do my next slide. Oh, whoa. Technical problems, 1 second. Okay, I first want to talk about who you guys are and who this session is geared towards. So it's for anyone who considers themselves a site builder, a developer, or a decision maker when it comes to building Drupal sites or Drupal projects. Who here considers themselves new to Drupal, maybe 1 year of experience or less? Right, just a few. This will be really great for you because we go over some general concepts that you may learn over time, and it'll help you make decisions quicker. And for the rest of you who are a little more experienced, this will be a good session because it helps reinforce habits that you've developed or methods you use to select modules. If I could summarize what this session is all about in a brief statement, it's how to quickly make smart, informed decisions when you need to select a module to fulfill functionality needs. So a little bit about myself real quickly. My name is Michael Miles. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, where I work as the Associate Director of PHP for Genuine Interactive. Genuine Interactive, we're a full-service digital agency, which means we just don't do development. We do design, AI, UX, SEO, video production, live engagements, and a whole set of technologies, not just Drupal. Myself, I've been working with Drupal since 2008. I've done everything from theme developing to module development, site building, site architecture, content entry. If it has to do with Drupal, I've touched it in some way. And you can find me on Twitter at MikeMiles86, as well as on Drupal.org as MikeMiles86. One last thing about me, I'm a lover of memes. Oh, I didn't mean to skip that. I'm a lover of memes. So there are a lot in this presentation, and I hope they just add to it. They don't distract too much. And the one thing I want you guys, my goal to teach you guys for this session is how to read. I'm also a lover of acronyms. And READ stands for the 4 steps I found myself following every time I look for a module. And they stand for research what exists, about finding the options that are available to you, evaluating those options, and figuring out which one may be the best fit, analyzing any gap in functionality versus what your best fit offers and what you're looking for, and then determining the amount of effort it'll take for you to close that gap if there are any. So to go a little more in depth for each of these steps, research what exists. This is about taking any keywords from your functionality requirements, if you have them, or a description of what you're looking for, and knowing how and where to search for modules and how to use the community to find something that will fit your needs. So like I said, the first part of this is isolating your key functionality needs. So if you're lucky enough to have functionality requirements, you want to hone in on specific keywords that you can use for searching. And you want to use those keywords to search for existing modules. So I looked at drupal.org this week, and there's over 27,000 modules listed. That means no matter what you're looking to accomplish, there's more likely of a chance that someone's already done it for you, right? And so you want to use what's available. And you want to use the community to help find what is available. Drupal.org is not your only place where you can find resources. You want to use the Drupal IRC channels to ask the community, or a Drupal Stack Exchange, even the Drupal subreddit if you're a Redditor. The community is very active and supportive in Drupal. So they want to help you accomplish your goals so that you can help them accomplish their goals. So use the community to your advantage. Talk to them to help find the functionality you want. 99% of the time when you do this type of research, when you use the community, you're going to find options, a handful of modules you may be able to use for your needs. The 1% of the time where you can't find anything, that indicates build a custom module because you can't find something that does what you want. But if you assume we're in that 99% case where you found a few modules after doing some research, you want to evaluate those options. And this step's about using certain metrics to quickly assess which of your options may be the best fit for your needs. And all the metrics I'm going to mention can be found on the project page for a module on drupal.org. So they're really easy to find and analyze. So the first thing I always do when I'm looking at a module is I read the module's description. A well-written description should tell you what the module does, how it does it, and any dependencies it may have on other modules or technologies. You also want to look at the community adoption of that module. Things such as the number of site installs, the number of downloads, and the size of the issue queue. So if you're looking at a module that's been out for a few years and it has a very low number of downloads and site installs, that may indicate to you that the community is using another solution, and it may not do necessarily what it says it does. On the other hand, if it's been out for a while or it's a new module and it has a very high downloads and installs, that tells you that the community has really gotten behind this module and they're using it. Along with that, it's the same with the issue queue. If a module has a big issue queue, that's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, because it's telling you that the community has gotten behind this module and they're contributing to it to make it better. The issue queue can also be used to tell you a bit about maintainer activity. Ideally, if you can, you want to use modules where the maintainer is very active. So if you're looking at the issue queue and there's a bunch of issues and they've never been closed because the maintainer does not contribute to them or work on them or merge them in, then that might tell you that maintainer is not interested in making their module better. Why would you want to use it? Along with maintainer activity is looking at how often they commit to the project. You know, if they put the project on the module on drupal.org, say 2 years ago, they made 3 commits and they haven't touched it in over a year, it's almost an abandoned module. So that means there's not going to be any improvements. So if you have to patch it and you contribute your patch, it's not going to be merged in. So if you go through these options and you end up eliminating all the modules you're looking at, that tells you, again, you can't find something that suits your needs, build a custom module. Let's say you may have found one that works. What you want to do with that best fit is then analyze the gap. So does everyone know what I mean when I say gap analysis? It's basically finding any holes in functionality between what the module offers and what you're looking for. And I think that this step actually takes the longest amount of time out of all 4 of them because there's a lot more effort you have to put into it. Now I can read all about a module, I can talk to the community about how it works, but I don't personally understand it until I actually use it. So the first part of this step is to download and test it. Bring it to a sandbox environment, use Drupal Test Me, I think is the website, so that you can play around with it, see if you can get the module to do what you want it to do. And testing the module allows you to discover what the missing functionality is. Does this module out of the box offer 80% of your functionality needs, or does it offer just 20%? The bigger the gap, the more work you're going to have to do in the end. And if you do find any gaps, again, use the community, go back to the issue queue and search for solutions. Has anyone else already come across this problem and offered a way to fix it? Use the IRC channels, again, to ask, hey, I'm trying to accomplish this with this module, do you have any recommendations? They may tell you other modules you can use or any other solutions. Now, if you've analyzed a best fit module and there is no gap, then that's great, you're done. You have a module that works for your needs. But if there is a gap and you can't find any community solutions, you're going to have to go to the next step and determine the amount of effort it takes for you to close those gaps. And while the last step takes the longest, this one I think is the hardest to do, simply because if you've had to do it, determining and estimating effort, especially accurately, is one of the hardest things you can do as a developer. I see some head nods who agree with me. But there are a few things you can do to make it easier to estimate the effort. First thing is to review the module's code. Drupal is open source, as you guys probably know. That means when you have a module, you can look through its code, see how it's written. You're looking for code that is structured following Drupal standards, well commented, uses any available hooks and APIs. If it's hard for you to understand how a module is doing something, obviously it's going to take more effort to close the gap. And when you're looking at the code, that can help you estimate how much you have to change. Do you have to rewrite 80% of this module to make it do what you want? Or do you only have to touch a little bit of it or just add to it, rewrite 20%? And then you have to ask yourself, these changes you're making, do they extend the module or do they alter it? So by extend, I mean, are you adding additional functionality onto what the module already does? And by alter, I mean, are you taking what the module seeks to do and making it do something completely different? If you're going to make a module do something completely different, then you're basically rewriting your own module already. Or if you're changing 80% of the module, you're rewriting your own module, so just make a custom module. But if you're just adding onto it or making simple changes, you may want to write a patch that you could possibly commit back to the project. So I want to review these steps really quick, like developers, using a flowchart, or you might know it as a decision tree. It's a good graphical representation of the steps, and it's easy to follow. So again, first, you want to research. Can you use keywords to find any modules that will suit your needs? If you can't, then build a custom one. But if you do, then take those modules and evaluate them. Check the different metrics to see, is there one that's the best fit? If you eliminate all your options, then build a custom module. However, if you find one that's best fit, analyze it, test it, play with it. Is there any gap in functionality that you're missing? If there's no gap in functionality, and it does what you want, use that existing module. You're done. There's no extra work you have to do. But if there is a gap in functionality, take a side step, see if you can find any community solutions to fill in that gap. Patches, other modules, anything that you can use where you don't have to do the work yourself. If there are community solutions, then great, use them. But if there aren't, and you have that gap in functionality, you need next to determine how much of a change do you have to make to that module. Are you extending its functionality, or are you altering it? And if you're making a big change or altering what the module does, write a custom module, because you're changing that module. But if you're extending its functionality and making a small change, then patch that module. So I know looking at this chart, it may look like and sound like most of the time you're going to build a custom module, but the two endpoints you usually get to are use existing module and community solutions. That's why I think these steps are great to follow anytime you're looking for a module, and not just if you're going to patch or write a custom one. So if you follow the first three steps, anytime you look for a module, you're going to find one that suits your needs. Now I can go over general concepts. I can read general concepts when I'm sitting in sessions, but unless there's real-world examples, I don't get the full benefit. So I'd like to go over a few from my actual experience as a developer and show you guys, following these steps, how to determine if you should patch or write a custom module. So the first scenario, I'm going to outline the requirements. I won't read them verbatim, but basically what I needed to do was anytime I was saving a JPEG image to a file entity, I needed to capture the EXIF metadata and map them to fields. And then I needed to be able to export these field mappings to features in Drupal so that I could send them off to my production environment. So looking at these requirements, I know in the real world you won't get them as well written as this. I was able to isolate some key functionality. So we're dealing with file, EXIF metadata, custom fields, and features. And for me, the keyword I was using was EXIF metadata, because that means one thing. It doesn't mean a whole lot of things. So I did some searching for modules. I looked on Drupal.org, and the first result was EXIF custom, so I added that to my list of potential modules. I did a Google search. You can use any search engine that you want. Prefix my keyword with Drupal. Again, first result was the exif module, so I added that to my list of potential. The second search result is a great example of using the community to your advantage. Someone on Drupal.org created a page that compares in a table all the existing exif modules. So that's something I could use to evaluate which one would fit my needs. But at this stage, I had two potentials. I had exif and exif custom. So I want to evaluate them, see which one of the two would be my best fit. I read the descriptions for each. Exif basically said it displays exif metadata for any images. And exif custom said you can create custom mappings for fields for any file entities. Again, I took a look at the community adoption. They're both pretty low for number of installs and downloads. That could just mean that this is a very specific use case for exif metadata, so not a whole lot of people in the community are just going to use these modules. I also looked at maintainer activity. So exif custom, it's only been out for a year. There's been 22 commits. The last one was 7 months ago. So they haven't really touched in a while. In the issue queue, about half the issues are open or half closed. So the open ones have probably been open for a while. But it's the same case with the exif module. But it's been around for 7 years. The latest committer hasn't committed anything for a whole year, and there's a lot more issues that are still open. So in terms of activity there, the maintainers aren't that great. But I still had to use one to determine the best fit. And I came up with exif custom, basically because of the description. Now with the metrics, you want to try to use them all together, but a lot of times the description is going to tell you mostly what you need to do. So my next step was to download and test the module. So I played around with exif custom in my development environment. I saw it was really easy to take exif fields and map them to my file entity fields. And while I played with it, I discovered there was missing functionality. It didn't support features. So I could create these mappings, but I was not able to get them into another environment. So I checked the issue queue for solutions. I went to Drupal.org, the issue queue for exif custom. I searched for features. There was no open issues for it. I went to IRC and I talked to people, and no one really knew how to accomplish that goal. So all right, I thought to myself, I have to add in features integration. So which path do you guys think I went down? Did I patch the exif custom module to add features integration, or did I decide to write my own exif module? Patch. Correct. Mainly because I wouldn't have to rewrite any of exif custom. I'd be adding to it, right? I'd be adding the small chunk of functionality to bring in features integration. Now, does everyone here know what a patch is? Familiar with it? Drupal.org /patch provides a lot of detailed information on what patches are. At a high level, a patch is a structured list of changes to a file. So it basically allows you to make changes, export those changes, and give that patch file to someone else, and they can recreate those changes on their set of files. Ideally, patches focus on a single change. So you're not going to write a patch that changes 8 different types of pieces of functionality in that module. You want to write a patch that changes one piece of functionality. This makes it easier if you do end up submitting a patch back, that the community can easily review it, the maintainer can review it, and merge it in. A little bit about how to submit a patch if you decide, I think this patch would be good overall for the module. You want to first, obviously, either create an issue if it doesn't exist or comment on an existing issue. You want to attach your patch so others can get it. Following naming conventions for patches on Drupal.org, which is usually a brief description, followed by the issue number, followed by the comment number, so that people can look at your patch file and know what is changing. And then after you contribute your patch, people may review it. They may offer advice on how to improve it. The maintainer may say, if you change these few things, I'll merge it in. So you want to revise your patch based on testing reviews. If the module comes out with a newer release that doesn't have your patch in it, you want to re-roll your patch to make sure it gets updated to match the code base. And hopefully your patch gets merged in to the project, and then you no longer have to maintain your patch. You just download the latest version of the module, and you're good. So in my real-world example, I contributed a patch I started an issue on the issue queue saying, hey, it'd be great if there's features integration. Here's a patch I created to accomplish that. I also said the little change I had to make to the core module was change it from using serial IDs to machine names because serial IDs don't export very well. A month after I contributed it, someone else downloaded it and used it and say, hey, I tested this, it works great. I think it could use more testing. I agree with that. The more testing you can do, the better. And then a month after that, the maintainer of the module looked at my patch and said, hey, this is fantastic. It's going to be in the next release. So now if you have to use Exif Custom, it's going to have features integration. And that shows how it's kind of a cycle of working with the community. I needed functionality. I wrote it for myself. I contributed it back. Now anyone else who needs that functionality doesn't have to go through those extra steps. All right, so I'll go through a more in-depth scenario. The requirements are a little bigger for this one. Basically, what I had to do was working on a site that uses Workbench, the Workbench suite of modules, to do workflow. And what they wanted to be able to do was create transitions between workflow states so that they could say, I want it when a node is published so that it can be archived at a certain time. And we want to be able to export these transitions, again, using features. And then for any revision of a piece of content, we wanted to apply a schedule to set these transitions. So I could say, on this date, do the first state, so publish it, and then on this date, archive it. So again, I looked at isolated the key functionality needs, and basically Workbench and schedule a transition were my two biggest. I did a search for any existing modules. Again, I went to Google, I searched Workbench schedule. I came up with the scheduler Workbench integration module. I wrote that down. Went back to Drupal.org, I did same search, and I came up again with the scheduler Workbench integration module. Skip ahead, again, talk to the community. This was the solution that was out there. So I had to evaluate it. Again, I read the module's description. It tells me that, what does it say? It says, it adds integration between the scheduler module and the Workbench moderation module. So I know now that I need to use scheduler if I want to use this module. It also tells me that it allows setting custom published and unpublished states. Kind of sounded like what I need to do. So I was like, all right, I'll download it and I'll test it. Like it says, I was able to create schedules. But the way the module works is I selected what the published state and the unpublished state are for each content type. And then per each node, I can select when to apply the published state and the unpublished state. So it's a little different than what I was looking for, right? I'm not able to create different transitions between schedules. I can just select the published state and the unpublished state. I was unable to select transitions for each revision of a node. I could select the transition states for a content type as a whole and then just select the dates for a node. And there was no features integration. I had no way to export these mappings. Again, something I needed. So I looked through the code, tried to figure out what did I need to do. Well, I need to change how schedules are created, because right now they're tied to content types. How schedules are stored, so that they're stored for node revisions. And then obviously I had to add in features integration. So which path do you guys think I chose? Did I patch scheduler Workbench, or did I write my own scheduler module? I wrote my own, correct. That's really because I would have to change a whole lot of what that module did and make it do something different. What I wanted to do was close to what scheduler was doing, but it was a different path. So a little bit about writing your own custom modules, some guidelines. Again, Drupal.org has a lot of information at developing/modules. But I'd say the #1 most important guideline is to follow Drupal coding standards. Just like if you're looking at modules code to see if you need to extend it or alter it, if you're writing a custom module, you want others to be able to understand what your code is doing. Who here has written code for anything, and 6 months later had to go back and change it, had no idea what it was doing? Yeah, if you're all developers, you should all be raising your hand, unless you've been developing for less than 6 months. That's why standards are important, because they provide a structure to your code that allow you to go back and easily understand what it's doing. More importantly, it allows others to look at your code and understand what it's doing. So along with following the Drupal coding standards, make use of any hooks or APIs that you can. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. So if you have to be able to export any functionality from your module to bring it to another environment, write in features integration. Don't try to write your own solution. And then test your code. Testing is very important. If you can, write behat tests, simple tests, or just run it through the gauntlet of have people try to break it. You're not going to know what's wrong with your code unless you test it. And you don't want to contribute something that's horribly broken because you're going to get some ridicule from the community. So when you do decide to write a custom module, and you're like, hey, maybe I want to contribute this back to the community, ask yourself, is this functionality others could use? If you're writing a custom module, say you're working, I don't know, for a soup company, and they're like, we want a module that shows the ratio of mushrooms to onions in our soups. That's a very specific use case. Not a lot of people on Drupal probably going to need to use that. But they may want a module that shows ratios between items. So if you can, think of your module as abstractly as you can. And if it's functionality that you think others could use, you may want to contribute it back. If you do contribute your module back, name it appropriately. You don't want to give it some random name that people aren't going to understand what it does. You want to be very direct and concise about what your module seeks to accomplish. Along with that, provide an accurate description. Again, this goes back to when you're looking for modules, you want to find one that has a description that tells you exactly what the module does. So if you're providing a module to the community, tell the community exactly what your module does. And then finally, be an active maintainer. If people start using your module and start submitting issues, don't take that as an offense that they're saying your code is crappy. Take it, as pride, because people are using your module and they want to make it better. They want to make it more robust. So maintain the issue queue, merge in patches, see what people find that you missed. It's free QA that you don't have to do. So especially if you're thinking of cost and you build a custom module for a client and they let you contribute it back, explain to them, you're going to get so much more QA than we can offer you, and it's going to be free. Actually, that's a really good selling point. I had to do that for actually this module that I'm going to show you. And the client was like, oh, all right, awesome, free QA. So I wrote my custom module. I called it Workbench Scheduler because it's a scheduler module for Workbench. I provided a very in-depth description about what it does. I even talked about what it does differently from scheduler Workbench integration. I explained it allows you to create different transition schedules and select different schedules for each node revision and set the start and end dates. Since I contributed this module, it was a couple months ago, almost a year ago. Wow, really? I think it's on about 600 websites or so at the moment, and people started contributing issues. People caught bugs that I didn't catch. People offered new functionality that I didn't even think of. Like now you can select just a start date or just an end date so you can have a single transition. And again, that's work I didn't have to do myself. It's holes I would not have found in my testing, and it's making the module better. All right, so let's summarize what we've covered today. Again, it's very important for me to teach you guys how to read. It's a lot, baby. And RE stands for research what exists, use keywords to find any potential modules, use the community. Evaluate any options you find, test, use the metrics to see which one may be your best fit. Analyze any gap in functionality from your best fit. See if there's community solutions that exist for it already. And then determine the amount of effort it would take for you to close that gap yourself. Following these steps, following these guidelines can help you accurately make the right decision when it comes to using a module as is, patching a module, or writing your own custom module. So that's all I have. I shortened this presentation. I gave this talk in Drupal Camp New York this year, where I go more in depth into the real-world examples. So if you guys are more interested in that, be sure to check out that recording. Again, you can find me on Twitter at MikeMiles86, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
You throw up that slide with the flow chart.
The flow chart?
Again? I just want to see
I can, yeah. Let me see. Oh, what did I do? You don't want to see the presenter notes. Where's my mouse? I lost it. There it is. All right. Flowchart. There it is.
Or are these slides available?
Oh, now it's still reversed. What the hell? They are available, but I will put this up there. How did I do that? Let's see. All right. Go to the animations. I'm a developer. You'd think I'd be better at using Keynote. Come on. One more. Okay, there you go. Is that everything? Yes. Any other questions while I have this beautiful chart up?
I'd love to get a glimpse at how you got features integration. You found either one of those modules. You find the path to a module.
He'd like to, what was the question one more time?
See how you got features integration into the.
The question was, how did I get features integration into the patch and to the module? So when I had to write the patch, it was my first time writing features integration. I don't know if I have the code available here, but basically, if you download the features module, there's a .api file, and the .api file explains any custom hooks that they have available. Also on the features page, there's a README on how to build integration. So I followed those steps. I also talked to the community my first time doing it, followed another example, and I just wrote the custom hooks that you need so that features knows that you can export. An important thing to note was I had to find out, in the case of EXIF custom, how to pull out the mappings and how to save mappings. So that's what was important about looking at the module's code for EXIF custom. It was very well written, it followed standards, so I could easily find those two functions. And then in my features hooks, I just had to call those two functions. So that's basically, I don't have an example of the code, unfortunately, but yes, you can actually go to the patch, yep. Or you can download EXIF custom now, it's in there.
I was a little confused about the difference between use community solutions or use existing module. What are community solutions in this?
Okay, so the question was, what's the difference between use existing modules and use community solutions? I mean, existing modules are community solutions. It's a good point. What I mean is, if you make it through the steps, the first 3 steps, and a module does exactly what you need it to do, by that I mean just use that module as is. But if you get to that 3rd step and you find that there's a gap in functionality between what the module offers and what you're looking to do, then check with the community, see if there's any existing patches for that module that close that gap, or if there's any other modules they recommend you using in addition to that one module.
And another, I guess, not question or suggestion is that an alternative to patching is to write a custom module that extends. So in your case, Workbench Scheduler is an extension of Workbench. You didn't try to actually integrate that into Workbench moderation, for instance.
That's a good point. So the question, the statement was, instead of patching, writing submodules, custom submodules to work with other modules. And I think that comes down to determining how big of a change you have to make. Again, if you have to write a lot of code, you don't want to write a patch. Obviously, that's going to change a lot. And so if you're going to have to write a custom module, you can consider that as a submodule. If you still require that base module, then it's a submodule. So like the scheduler module I wrote still required Workbench, but it's functionality Workbench didn't offer. I'm not going to write all this code and give it to Workbench because that changes ultimately what Workbench is seeking to do. Workbench handles moderation. It doesn't care about schedules. And so the custom module I wrote is a submodule of Workbench.
typically when we go to make the decision, we look at is there a gap? If there's a gap, we typically file an issue with the module maintainer to say this is what we find that's missing. Is it in your roadmap? Is it something you're looking at? Would you recommend us adding this to the module or creating something different? So we're trying to get feedback at that point. Is that something you would recommend as well?
Yeah. So the question was, if you do find a gap, do you create an issue to make a recommendation to the modular maintainer? I would say yes. It depends on your time frame, how quickly you need to complete that gap. Always create an issue if there's not one that exists, so that it puts it on the maintainer's radar. Like I created that issue before I wrote my patch, but I had to write that patch for a deadline, so I created the patch myself and added it to my own issue queue. But once you create that issue, it not only lets the maintainer know, but everyone else in the community know, hey, someone is trying to solve this. So they may actually contribute a patch to your issue, somebody else, and then again, you can take their patch. In the back?
I wonder if you could address, let's say that you patch something, the patch is doing exactly what you do, but it's a very distinct use case that really isn't going to be used for anything else. But now the maintainer has released version 2 of their module that you're still using. And now, if you talk about the workflow of how to make sure that your patches still get shoved in whenever you now have updated the core of the module to be used.
So the question was, say you're writing a patch that's very specific to your use case. So it's not something that may get merged into the project or the module, and the module gets updated. How do you maintain that patch? Is that basically the question?
Yeah, and if you've got a lot of sites, and you have a process to make sure that all patches always get used.
Yeah. So one recommendation I can make for that is what I call patch remediation. So anytime I've had patches where I've had to do that. And so in my Drupal structure, at the Drupal root, I create a new folder or a new directory, and I call it patches. And that's where I keep all my patches for my modules. So that way, if you do update a module and you had your patch in the module's code, it doesn't wipe out your code. And you can reapply that patch. It's also important if you're updating your code base for your project, that every so often you do module updates. When you do that, you want to check to make sure if your patch still applies. If it doesn't, then you want to do what's called re-rolling your patch. There's instructions on Drupal.org on how to re-roll patches. So you want to update your patch to meet the functionality needs or the new structure of the file. If it's very custom work, then you're basically writing the patch again, possibly, depending on how much the module changed. But that's something you have to just maintain and manage yourself if it's a very specific use case. The other hand, what you could do is, in that case, write a small custom module that you're just going to keep on your one project. That way, well, I guess it's the same as doing a patch. But if you can, write a small custom module that uses any hooks to do like alters to what the other module is doing.
I've been into that same situation, but even not with a very specific use case. It's just if your patch is sitting in the issue queue, for whatever reason the maintainer hasn't applied it or whatever, you still have to sort of maintain this patch module. And I have a process similar to yours where I structure my modules directory. It's contrib custom, and then I have a patched directory, and I make sure that, and then there's a patches folder in there or README or something.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a good statement. That again, if you have patches that you create for modules, make sure you have the patches folder in your project. Even if it's for really specific use cases or general use cases, hold on to those patches until you know they've been merged into the project. Then you can remove them from your code base. Any other questions? All right. Awesome. Thanks a lot. How do I stop the recording?
The slides will be available?
Yeah, I can make the slides available. Obviously, this is being recorded right now, so the recording will be available so you can rewatch.
I have a question. Did you successfully use the custom
I did. All I had to do was add that features integration. Other than that, Exif Custom worked for my needs. So that was really great, and it's still in use on the project. And now, since we've gone through some module updates, I was able to remove my patch because it got merged into the project. So, yes.
Does that do the orientation?
I don't know. What it does is, so EXIF metadata is like you get the author information for an image and other like where it was taken, GPS coordinates. I don't know all the fields, but it may have I think it might have orientation. Oh, really? I don't know if it fixes the data. It doesn't fix the data that's in the image, but it just extracts it and saves it to fields. I don't really know why you need to use that. I think for our use case, because we were extracting the metadata and sending it to a shared Solr index so that images could be searched across multiple sites and then used across multiple sites. Awesome. Thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it. I hope you like my background.
Your stuff about patches helped me out a lot.
Oh, yeah?
Already, because on my company's website, there's a phone input, and it validates to see if it's a real phone number or not. And I guess, like, a while back, all UK numbers tells you that works